Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Today is Thursday, January 15th, 2026, and you are watching the House General and Housing Committee. We are going to hear first from the Division of Fire Safety and from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. This is all part of our initial round of hearings, which relate to what is working, what is not working, and what should we do differently with respect to our legislative initiatives. And the issue of permitting, building permits, et cetera, has come up repeatedly. And so we thought we would hear, I don't want to say the horse's mouth, that's not appropriate, but we would from the authority. So Mike, would you introduce yourself and take it away?
Good morning. For the record, I'm Mike DeRocher. I'm the Executive Director for the Division of Fire Safety, and I have with me Landon Wheeler. He's our Deputy Director. So I thought what I might do here briefly is just quickly go over some of the stuff here that the Division of Fire Safety does in case folks aren't familiar with us. But we do all the plan review and permitting for all construction and renovations of public buildings. Basically everything except your own single family owner occupied homes and some farm and ag exemptions. We do all the code enforcement for rental housing, health and safety, which we had rules that went into effect January 1st of 2024. We're responsible for fire service training for all volunteers and career firefighters. We also have the urban search and rescue team within the Division of Fire Safety, and they are pretty much focused on swiftwater rescue operations, structural collapse stuff, and they help us out with body recovery and our fire investigations scenarios sometimes. We also have the hazardous material response team. We also do fire investigation where we're paired up with a fire investigator from the Vermont State Police. So there's somebody from fire safety and VSP. And we have the electrical licensing board, the plumbing licensing board, the handicap access board, and the elevator safety board. And we also have the fire service training councils also within the Division of Fire Safety. And I also chair the legislative governance committee, which oversees the training facility for law enforcement and fire down at the academy down in Pittsburgh. So we look at things, access and use issues, contracts, all that kind of stuff. So the Division of Fire Safety has inspection and permitting authority for buildings defined in statute as public buildings. Public buildings include structures or dwellings rented for long-term or short-term. Farm housing provided to farm workers is defined as a public building. And these can be found in 20 VSA Chapter 172 and 173. Chapter 172 is the new regulatory authority over the rental housing health and safety code, and that picked up the short-term rentals. So short-term rentals have to comply with the rental housing health and safety code.
Can I ask a really quick question?
Yeah.
If I stay in an Airbnb and something is wrong, it's up to me as the visitor or short-term renter to contact you and make a complaint.
Correct.
Right? You don't go like unit to unit.
Correct. There is no proactive inspections on any housing, whether short-term or long-term. We don't have a proactive inspection program. We do get involved in a number of purchase and sale type inspections. It's not statutorily required, but what happened was 15, 20 years ago, over some Supreme Court rulings, the attorneys would not close on a particular transaction unless they knew that that structure complied with the Division of Fire Safety requirements. And so no good deed goes unpunished, right? So we didn't want to hold the real estate market hostage, which was what was happening, right? If we didn't go out, they weren't closing on these buildings. We started out just doing maybe 50 or 100 a year, and most of them were up in Chittenden County. That whole entire concept now is spread across the entire state. We now have, like up in Chittenden County, I have a full-time inspector. All this individual does is purchase and sale inspections. So we do about 600-800 of these a year roughly. We charge $125. And then we produce an inspection report. And it helps facilitate these real estate transactions. Again, it's not statutorily required.
So if I could just go a little further with this, so your jurisdiction includes all rental dwellings of any size
Correct.
and multifamily housing
Correct.
also, and short-term rentals.
Correct.
Is what I remember from previous testimony is that there are different levels of requirements for short-term rentals depending on the number of bedrooms or,
Correct. I'm gonna go over this.
okay, good.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. Right now, the division only responds to complaints, and that's true across all our housing programs, even the new rental housing health jurisdiction that we took on in 2024. That is all complaint driven. We have an online platform. People can go in and answer their complaint online. Real easy process. And since the inception of those rules, we've done about 875 complaints that we've received division-wide. The legislature afforded us 5 positions to carry out those responsibilities. Right now, we have 4 positions that are on board with us now full-time. That's all they do. And we also spread the wealth out among some of our other inspectors, electrical and plumbing as needed to deal with some of the safety concerns.
Mike, how many inspectors do you have overall in your budget?
Maybe
16 fire marshals, and 4 residential health and safety inspectors.
3 plumbing inspectors and 8 electrical inspectors. So, yeah, and so we were approved for 5 positions. The legislator gave us 5 positions. This was back during when we were receiving ARPA funding. So the first year we ran the program in the housing, there was ARPA funding that was available to fill in some gaps there. Those 875 roughly complaints have resulted in about almost 1,400 building inspections. That does not include several hundred more electrical and plumbing. They're like, they're just, those are different inspections that were part of our initial building inspection.
You have a question here, Mike.
Sorry, just a quick clarifying question. When you talk about plumbing, is that because of like gas lines?
It could be anything from the heating system to, because now our plumbing inspectors years ago were classified as plumbing and heating inspectors to deal with our carbon monoxide poisoning problems. So we sent them through certification, gas certification, oil certification. So they're right there in the building. So we kind of made them focus in on preventing CO poisonings and fatalities. So
Do they also do air circulation systems? Because that's more and more common under the building codes. As buildings are tighter, there's active air exchange systems.
right, anybody in a public building has to be a certified technician, either gas or oil. So we rely on our third-party certifications to do that work properly, because we just can't be in every single place all the time. So we let industry provide us their national certification criteria, like oil is a NORA certification. Well, that's what the national practices and the national certifying agency or, so I don't know if I'm answering your question fully, but that's, we rely on the industry.
But there is capability to investigate air circulation.
I don't think,
Exchange.
to be transparent here, I don't think our plumbing inspectors are out doing balance testing and all that on ventilation systems. They're relying on the contractors that did the install to do that type of work. We're just making sure the heating person is certified and then looking at the general fire safety hazards, clearance to combustibles, the vent connector, combustion air, all that kind of stuff. Real focused in on preventing carbon monoxide poisoning
Right.
or fires. So we're not in the energy efficiency side of it.
I'm not thinking so much energy efficiency as mold.
Yeah.
If there's a complaint of mold, does that fall under your?
Yes, that under the rental health and safety code, complaints of mold, is that correct, Landon?
That is correct. Let me know.
Yeah, on the mold part, if you wanna,
You know what, why don't you tell us your name?
I'm Landon Wheeler. I'm the Deputy Director of the Division of Fire Safety. A real quick summary. So we do have codes and standards that cross over into the subject of air movement within a building, such as a heating plant working and things of that nature. The residential health and safety code does cross over and capture mold issues within a building. And there are requirements for ventilation in bathrooms, but they are very different objectives than whole house air movement. And that would be outside of our scope of our codes and standards unless it was heat related or it was related to the proper operation of a heating plant. We're not looking for, or we don't have the capability and the training to assess whether an HRV or a heat recovery unit is properly moving air and there's enough air circulation to make that work.
What happens if, I guess I want to drill down on this for a minute, just because buildings are getting tighter and tighter and concerns have been expressed that if the things aren't done right, you get mold. So if someone complains about mold and you go in and you find mold, what is the corrective action? I mean, it may be that it's because their air circulation system isn't working.
Yeah, and that very well is. So we treat the cause to find the cure. Is the easiest way to explain that. We try to find why the moisture is being created and what it's from. And then we try to help the tenant and the landlord reduce that moisture level to then in turn remediate the mold. That is our current practice. And that's what we've been doing for about the last 2 years.
Thank you.
a lot of this, some of the mold creation is from water damage, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, roofs leaking, all that kind of stuff, infiltration of water into the membrane of the structure, so. So we do tell people, the landlord, you gotta fix your roof, you gotta do this and do that. But it is, a lot of it is certainly water infiltration into the building.
Yes, Mary.
I have two questions, but the Cortina Inn in Rutland housed, do you know what I'm gonna say? A number of people without homes, and when I toured that building, they had the laundry room blocked up, taped off because it was loaded with mold. You could see it. If people are living here. What?
That's a great question. That specific facility, because it is a hotel and the statutory requirements that OBRA saw and guided that hotel program kept the health under the Department of Health. So that wouldn't have fallen under the residential health and safety code for the Division of Fire Safety. I fully understand that may be an issue. The complaint process for the Department of Health is very similar to the divisions of fire safety. So if a client was residing within that facility, they could contact the Department of Health and they would follow up with that facility. Because there is a defined area where the Division of Fire Safety does have jurisdiction and where we don't. In transient lodging such as a hotel or a restaurant or those types of facilities still fall under the Department of Health, not the Division of Fire Safety, even if it was part of the hotel program.
So it's transient doesn't fall.
Transient, such as a hotel, but transient in regards to short-term rentals does fall under the Division of Fire Safety, and that is,
But not hotels.
but not hotels.
Okay.
They fall under our other codes and standards under the life safety code. Sorry, sir.
Thank you.
I have a
Yes.
very quick, just really to that, and that division of jurisdictions is a state statute. It was at some point our decision to say short-term rentals should fall on one side or the other.
It was, it started, I believe, around 2021. Statutes were generated. The carve out was from 18 BSA and it was recreated into 20 BSA 172.
If you recall, like 4 years, maybe 5 years back, I think you were with us, right? On the Rental Housing Advisory Board that was created, is actually what spearheaded this whole entire debate regarding given primary authority of the Division of Fire Safety to enforce the rental housing health and safety codes that previously was being enforced by mostly volunteer health officers in the communities. So we took over what 220 health officers were doing, and we took over those primary responsibilities for a host of reasons. But it was the catalyst to this was the recommendations produced by the Rental Housing Advisory Board that was created. And there were a lot of meetings. I'll just mention that. So right now, the division has 9 inspection agreements with local towns. Each agreement is specifically tailored to the community. So some are for existing residential only, while others include plan review, electrical, and plumbing. So the city of Burlington, we have electrical, plumbing, and permitting MOUs with them. You might go to Fairfax, they do existing housing only. So we tailor it to what the community wants. So for example, if Fairfax wanted an ordinance to inspect short-term rentals, we could enter into an inspection agreement with the town of Fairfax. They'd have to have a certified inspector, attend our training and that kind of stuff. I actually enjoy kind of working with the communities that want to be involved, and Vermont's very fortunate in the sense where there's regulation and consistency over that process, where if you go to some of the other states, it's just a free-for-all. Here, you have to have the same codes and standards we do, so the people aren't playing off 20 different sets of rules and standards. It's all housed here at the state level. It's worked out pretty well, but we have 9 agreements right now. We're very reluctant right now to be turning over plan review agreements, because when we do that, we have to turn over our permit fee revenue that we would be charging a state, a constituent. That goes to the local folks to offset their cost of running that program. So we're shooting ourselves in the foot by turning over the revenue on our plan review side. So this number's been pretty well level here. So the question came up, we have 3 major occupancy classifications prescribing what safety codes and standards apply to particular housing projects. the code itself, the life safety code that we adopt is a national standard. In the code, anything over 3 outsiders would be classified as a rooming and lodging facility. And our rules, because we had so many bed and breakfast operators, we raised that number to 8 guests. So they could comply with the requirements of the single family home, which is the least restrictive out of the group. This has been a good economic driver for those operating bed and breakfast and housing less than 8 guests. We have not had a fire problem in these places. We prescribe reasonable requirements. And this actually extends into everything to the H2A program for farm housing, which helps and supports that economic program as well too. 9 to 16 guests is considered a rooming and lodging facility. We have specific language in our rules where this is where it gets a little more interesting because we have a lot of.
I'm so sorry, we need to pause real quick. Our stream is broken, so we can't continue conversating.
In other words,
You're sorry.
we're not accessible to the
Yes.
public, so we have to stop for a minute.
No, it's okay. Now we get to talk about anything except fire safety.
I mean, we can talk
housing.
about how great Fairfax is. I hear they have a
Oh,
great rep.
I hear they have a really great charging station for your EV and a little market where you can stop and get your groceries.
That little market has some of the best cheese in the world.
And baked goods.
You know, we're back live.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. This is just to remind everybody who's listening, this is the General and Housing Committee, and it's January 15th, 2026. The Division of Fire Safety is in the middle of its testimony. We temporarily lost, we lost the ability to have our video work, so go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So where we see some challenges is the 9 to 16 guest range. That's a rooming and lodging facility. So the code requirements are a little more restrictive as you go up in the number of people, and these are mainly transient guests, right? They're not familiar with the environment, and there's a lot of issues there. So in our rules, we have an effective date where if you're an owner and you created this rooming and lodging type facility with 9 to 16 guests after the effective date of our rules, then you're expected to comply with the new provisions like you just started it. Because what people were doing is bypassing, they would tell us, well, we've been operating for 15 years, when in fact, they just built this house. And this is more relevant, I think, in the ski areas, where you have these 5-6 bedroom homes that are built. They put a keypad on the outside and they just advertise online, and there's no control over that. There's no way for us to identify them other than you go online or something, or we get a complaint. And like I said before, on short-term rentals, we don't receive very many complaints on these.
Right. Mike, hold on. Ashley, you have a question?
I have 2 questions directly related to this. I don't want to name names in case it's being done incorrectly, but I'm thinking of specifically, it's more of a vacation area in Vermont that has a short-term rental on its property, but the property's actually a motel or a hotel or motel. Since they're not connected, but on the same property, would it default to the 17 or more, or would it stay at the 9 to 16?
We would treat that auxiliary type structure
Okay,
as a single
As its
unit.
own.
and my
Yeah.
other question would be, do you have the capacity and or do you want the ability to pull up like a short-term rental and look?
do we want that capacity?
Yeah,
We gave a couple of years or 4 or 5 years ago, the division was directed to provide all online operators with some guidance and safety considerations. We partnered with the health department and the tax department. And we do have some guidance that has gone out to operators. However, there was new legislation that required us to provide precise guidance to all the online operators, and we are really struggling with this because for this reason that I'm showing you right now, you're talking about a checklist that could be 5, 6, 7 pages long. Nobody's going to read it. So we are internally trying to figure out how we can best educate these operators on safety concerns based on the number of people they have, where we can put something meaningful out to them and direct them maybe to our webpage, right? Where then we can house more detailed information. But this is a real, but what happens is when you provide these like self-inspection checklists and all this, it doesn't cover all the possible hazards. And then the people get complacent and think, well, this little 6, 7 item checklist is all I gotta do. And then you get a complaint, you show up, there's other items that are found to be in violation and they just argue with you to no end. Well, I completed the checklist. So the checklist, is it helpful? Yes. Is it definitive? No. And we are trying to figure this out. Most our fire fatalities are in single family owner occupied homes. We haven't had them in our short-term rentals, but they are in single family owner occupied home, which makes up as you all know, there's a lot of single family homes being used for short-term rentals. So it is definitely a high priority and on our radar.
that was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yes,
How do you discern the difference between 8 guests or 9 guests? Like if my mother rented out her 4-bedroom house, would that be considered a 3-guest house? Or do you consider the capacity of it being a 15-person?
Yeah, there are so many different scenarios. I mean, we can walk in and there'll be 4 bunk beds in a room.
Yeah,
And there's 8 people. The other challenge that we've had is there's really no definition of a family, right? So what do? You rent a camp for a week and your brother or sister comes with you and they have their 3, 4 kids and you've got 9 people in this camp you're renting. You know, the only time we respond is to complaints, and I don't like to think that we split hairs to that degree. But that is just a good question. I don't have a perfect answer for you. You know, we do a room count, bed count, that kind of stuff. That sets the baseline for us.
can I ask another question?
yeah, but that's when there's a complaint, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have any way of categorizing whether it's a guest, a rooming and lodging facility or just a single family home.
On a purchase and sale inspection, if we're contacted.
Yeah, but if you're not,
If they do a renovation or put an addition onto the building and they gotta do something with their electrical service and we end up getting a construction permit for like a project or something, that would create a review of that information, because in the plan review, we would classify that particular structure one way or the other.
right, Elizabeth, you
That
have
was-
another question?
It's related to that. So let's say you do an inspection. Do you give out a certificate declaring which category it
Yes.
falls into?
It's an inspection report, and we do classify it at that point. Yeah.
And so then, do you know whether the tax department notes that classification?
The online, I know that the online operators are somehow connected with the tax department because the tax department a few years ago, working with us and the health department and stuff, they were legislatively directed to address the tax issue on short-term rentals, but I don't want to speak for the tax department.
I just wondered whether there was any coordination between the classifications and how each one gets taxed.
I'm not off the top of my head,
There's not a nexus between the two. And I'm not really sure what the nexus would be because the classification for rooms and meals tax is kind of the same for them once they start collecting rooms and meals tax. But again, I'd say the same statement as the director. That would be kind of outside of our scope. The Division of Fire Safety's we have to classify the occupancy to be able to do the inspection and apply the right codes. So that's where we have to have a number to start with in that process. But the nexus between our classification and the tax department, I'm not aware of any existence of that.
And where does it get filed? The classification.
With it, the owner is always the responsible party to hold that information, but we do have a records management system. Currently in the Division of Fire Safety that is operational, where we store all of our historic documents, inspections, and we'll call it an occupancy certificate, which is an inspection report. We are currently going through an RMS build out to have additional abilities.
One last question I have, and then another on this tiered system. I'm trying to just get a general sense of the difference between the major material differences between between rooming and lodging and hotel motel. So for example, and then any other major things you want to indicate. If there's a hot tub in a rooming and lodging facility, I assume, but don't know, that it doesn't have to have a lift device to allow handicapped access. But if you're in a hotel, you do, is that true?
You can, because landing chairs, the access for it.
So currently, the Department of Justice has not provided a lot of institutional information in regards to homes that are transitioned to short-term rentals. The current guidance from them is a home, which is typically exempt from federal ADA requirements, meets kind of the same layout as some most of these short-term rentals.
Right.
So therefore, applying ADA to those facilities is not necessarily practical. That's currently the information that I have.
But in the 9 to 16,
Correct, it's still, most of those 9 to 16 are single-family homes
yeah,
that were converted
Right.
into use as short-term rentals. So the layouts, the number of bedrooms, they may be a little bit larger in nature, but they still resemble a single-family home in their nature and maybe not so much their use, but in the way that they're built, their construction. Most of them don't have, the same requirements as a hotel or a motel for ADA.
so it's ADA light. For
It is. On the federal side, on the state side, the 2012 Vermont access rules do have minimum requirements when the buildings are renovated to be adaptable and visitable where those items are applicable. The former Act 88 was a driver for the definition of visitable, which makes buildings more usable for people that may have daily needs. And as the Division of Fire Safety, we do enforce that when there's a renovation. But it's not a retroactive item until there is a renovation, and that's an important distinction. We don't go into an existing building and say, start opening up your doorways and things of that nature. It's when a building is renovated, we would apply those codes and standards.
Thank you. Yes, Tom.
Yes. So with an eye towards long-term housing, which we're short of,
Okay, right.
when they say a homeowner with a big old house, big old farmhouse takes a loan from VHIP and they create an apartment in what used to be the kitchenelle or whatever, does the health and safety code apply to the rental unit or to the building as a whole? If the bulk of the building is still primary residence, does the whole thing have to come up to code or
It would apply to the whole
the
structure.
whole structure? Okay.
Lenora, did you have a question?
I was sort of jumping the gun and I was looking ahead in your presentation. Because I'm trying to get to the meat of like, if you have an ask of the legislature, that's why I was asking about like, when did we separate this out? So I think we're about to get to it. Is this sort of your challenge that you're facing right now is with this growth of short-term rentals that towns are asking you for
Yeah,
you to come out before there's a complaint?
one of the challenges we have is, and I'm not sure I call it a challenge when you look at all the responsibilities that the division has, but what we are experiencing is the locals trying to pass ordinances that require the short-term rentals to be inspected by the Division of Fire Safety. So we have been proactive and then reaching out to those that are trying to pass these ordinances and saying, stop. We don't have the capacity to inspect short-term rentals. And certainly not going to be selective and go into one community and doing it and not to another and so forth. We would have to have, there was a housing study done years ago when Tasha Wallace was our commissioner. And there was like 30 inspectors or something like that to pick up the workload off, whether it's short-term rentals and existing residential inspections on a proactive type basis. It's just not it's never gonna like materialize to us. That's why previously, as I stated, you know, the agreements that we do have with our municipalities, it does increase safety because there's another set of eyes in a community where we would not be engaged. So we have been successful in fighting these off, if that's the right word to use, but discouraging folks from doing this. We were just down in November down at Fairleigh Resort, speaking with Vermont Leagues and City of Towns, city managers, health officers, regional planning commission folks. And so we emphasize that down, same program I delivered down there. So we haven't seen a big influx of these ordinances being produced at this point, but requiring an inspection from the Division of Fire Safety. So
Let's drill down a little on this because this is coming up to us.
Yeah.
We have on our wall a short-term rental bill. And it may not, it may just end up being a vehicle for change, but one of the active issues that's we have to face is the following. As you probably heard in that conference where I was, a lot of communities want to regulate short-term rental, not with an idea of reducing or eliminating them, but to ensure health and safety. But they feel like they don't have the resources. So of course, then they say, well, you do it, right? Division of Fire Safety should do it. What is supposing that we were to provide an income source for that, a 1% charge is what the Vermont League of Cities and Towns has recommended, allowing towns to impose a 1% tax, or to have the state impose it. The question is, what should be done with that money? Should it be used by the town to use your standards? In other words, town officials use your standards, or should it go to you?
well, I'm just going to tell you that I wouldn't want it housed in fire safety. So that much. I just relay that we have our hands full right now, and we're just getting by, making sure we're not exposing the state to liability here. And the other issue, just for awareness in this committee, is the ongoing effort to take all the energy efficiency and then throw that to us too. And there's like 2 bills now out in the bill
Enforcing codes.
enforcing all the energy efficiency codes, promulgating the rules, being the authority having jurisdiction, and the list goes on and on. And this is a result of the building energies committee work that has been spearheaded by Representative Campbell and former Senator Bray. So we're not looking for any additional work.
But is the uniformity, I mean, you indicated that one of the benefits of the current system with respect to fire safety is that there's uniformity, and that is one thing I'd like to clarify. Do towns right now have the ability to adopt a fire and safety code that is at variance in any way from yours? Does our fire and safety code preempt local fire and safety codes?
Yeah, so yes, the minimum standard is our standard. There are very few occasions where some communities will have some requirements that may exceed our standards. But it is very, very few. I hope that answers the question.
But they can theoretically go stricter.
I mean, you like, for example, City of Burlington years ago, if you put a fire alarm system in your building, they would dictate where it went. It might not be consistent with the fire alarm code itself, but the fire chief in the City of Burlington may want it in a particular location. Or they may want the alarm signal being transmitted a certain way. So there are some of those type detailed amendments to our rules that a local may choose to do.
And the energy efficiency proposal, again, I'm assuming without knowing, since it's across the hall, that the goal is to have a uniform energy efficiency regime statewide. I've heard complaints that there's a concern that some towns are looking at adopting stricter energy efficiency guidelines, and that we're interested, for example, in modular housing, offsite modular housing or manufactured housing, and the people who are working on that don't want to see a hodgepodge of different requirements. Did I intuit that you're saying about the idea of putting an enforcement of a standard energy efficiency code with you is not something you would seek?
Absolutely not. And I've been pretty vocal about it. I mean, for the past 3-4 years. And I could sit here all day and go through all the aspects over that, but it goes back to fire safety has no subject matter expertise at all in energy efficiency. Public service right now promulgates the rules. The contractor pool today is challenged with energy efficiency. My position has been, let's educate, do energy efficiency awareness, do some training for our contractors, and build any energy efficiency program or initiative from the ground up, and not create a whole layer of bureaucracy and push that down onto an industry that can't do it. I consider ourselves experts at, I just call it code management rather than enforcement. Because it is a management system. It's not just going out and pointing at people saying, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's all about variances, controlling the permit process, not delaying the permit process anymore. Delaying permits is money. Are we going to hire electrical engineers, plan reviewers, all this kind of stuff to manage an energy efficiency program, which is just going to have a negative effect on affordability. There's just no way around it. And, you know, we're statutorily charged with reducing fire fatalities. And that's what we're trying to do. We've had 12 fatalities in 25, which I don't like to sit here and say that. And those are real numbers. They're kids, they're family members. And so it's hard for me to say, well, make sure this window is installed properly when we have people that are dying in fires. So that's kind of where my focus has been.
Elizabeth,
Sorry to get off on that.
no,
tangent.
that's okay. Elizabeth, we have two questions here. Let me just ask before we get to these questions. Samantha, you have testimony prepared, right? We are gonna, our schedule says that we take a break at 10:15, so that means we have 25 minutes or so, well, 25 minutes left. So Mike, I just want to know, how close are we to the besides the fact that there's questions, the conclusion of your testimony?
Oh, sorry. I don't have any real. Our next steps right here on this slide here would be the end to this.
Okay,
And that would be that our goal is to enhance our educational and public outreach and develop a wide range of educational material easily accessible to short-term rental operators. Can we do better? Yes. And then again, I've already stated, provide online resources and so forth. So that's my goal in 2026 is what can fire safety do to enhance safety through education and public outreach?
Elizabeth and then Leonora, questions?
My question is directly related to that. So, I think you said you had 1,800 complaints, of which there were some, I'm just,
Yeah, approximately 900 complaints. I got the number here,
do you track how many, 13, okay.
right there.
Do you track how long it takes you to, respond to a complaint?
There are mechanisms in place, but I will tell you this, we are in the process of building out a new RMS system. This new RMS system, not only is it gonna track all this type of data, but it's also gonna give tenants, short-term rental operators, the ability to go in to their, into our database and into a read-only dashboard, and they'll be able to see their inspection results and that kind of stuff on our system.
Well, my follow-up or my real question is, if there was a, say, requirement that on a receipt, sales receipt for a short-term rental, notice that complaints could be lodged with the Division of Fire Safety, would that hamper you? Would you be able to manage any kind of increase in?
What, I'm sorry,
Complaints.
could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I probably didn't say it right.
No.
If there was a requirement that tenants, short-term tenants, be notified that they have a way to file a complaint, do you think your office would be able to handle whatever influx that created?
That would be part of our outreach to the online operators. That is something we should be doing right now. We should be in this guidance that we provide. Number one, we got to get rid of the previous guidance document that's out there. Provide a new one because the whole authority and chain of command has changed. And that would be part of that. We would give a direct route for people to access the online complaint form. And then to double back on, can we tell how long a complaint stands before it's responded to? Yes, we have to go behind our database. It's not some report that we have, but I have to have an IT person go in and do scripts, right, in order to generate that kind of data. But we can track our open inspections. We have a hazard index rating system we use. So there's multiple ways in which we can track this stuff, but our new RMS system, which hopefully we go live late fall or early winter in 26. I'm optimistic we're gonna be able to do a lot more stuff than our current system has the capacity to do. But yes, we can track open complaints and all that stuff to make sure these are being responded to.
Leonora?
Yes, thanks. So your opposition or frustration with the thought of setting up a new energy code is that it's currently being imagined as coming under your job description, and you're saying that there's that lacks logic, because regardless of capacity, it would open us up to having to specialize in something that we're not experts in currently.
Correct.
Is the logic, just to understand the logic behind placing it under your jurisdiction, is it because you are some of our only eyes on the ground to, when a complaint is lodged? And I guess my follow-up would be, what would be a compromise? Would it be something like keeping it a complaints-based system where when there's a complaint, you can also send in somebody? So maybe that's not do it at the building or imposing it, or is that too problematic because then you're tearing apart structures and.
Yeah, I'm not, to back up here real quick, I'm not frustrated with the effort to move the energy efficiency over to fire safety. I'm just opposed to it is probably better. I work with a lot of these people that are on this work group outside this. So we keep our relationships positive. But you're looking at, they want to extend us into single family owner occupied homes. I strongly oppose that. They, the design professionals, there is logic to it, okay? If you're a professional and we're looking at plans, there is logic behind, can fire safety do this and review the plans and do all this stuff? We have people that are out in the field doing this. So the logic is there. When it comes down to business process and practicality and cost and the impact on contractors, the impact on our permit process. And when you start getting into the details and the weeds of all this stuff, then it becomes a real significant challenge where I can't envision how this would work when you don't have the ability at the contractor level yet to comply with all these provisions. So you're just stacking up the bureaucracy over an industry that is probably going to struggle with this. So.
I should clarify just for the committee that I've had several conversations with members of the Energy Committee where this is currently resides. There is, and in fact, the representative, Scott Campbell, is kind of the residential, he's the code expert here. There's been a committee that has been assembled and has been meeting for several years, in fact, for years on this issue. I think everybody's aware that we're a bit of an outlier state and that we don't have a residential, we're the size of a medium-sized town and we don't have a residential building code. And I think everybody's aware of that, that we're outliers that way. At the same time, I think everybody on that committee is aware of what Mike's talking about, which is that we have a real problem with the sort of state of education and the capability of our entire contractor community, our building community. And I think there is a consensus that a step, without commenting on where this legislation will go, that a necessary step is a much better education system for existing contractors.
We should support CTE a little bit more.
Yeah, that this is a real issue that we have to work with. So I'm not taking a position on where it should reside or when it should be done. I'm just saying, there's a lot of work being done. It's being done across the hall. It may come to us because it involves housing, so it may well come to us.
I'm just about, done. 1 minute on the building code thing, just for clarification. We do have a residential building code. It applies to 3 units
Right.
and up.
Yeah,
And so the only buildings that are not under an official
Single.
building code is the 1 and 2 family dwellings, the
With a
duplexes.
duplex and a single family.
Correct.
okay. Any other questions before we let this man go? Yes, Joe, and then Mary.
One would be just the follow-up here, just noting that STRs that I've been in are anywhere from like the one pager at the door to let you know about the place to like a binder
Yes, yes.
like this. And in both of those cases, they had any health or safety complaints can be filed at blah, 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 blah. So I think it's something that's kind of.
There's a posting, in other
I
words.
mean,
Yeah.
I've been in two, so I don't know if it's being done everywhere.
Were they here?
Yeah, they're fine. The next would be, I'm curious how you handle complaints that come in when, I shouldn't say quite clearly, but when the evidence seems to lead you towards this was caused by the tenant.
Right, we have ability to issue administrative penalties to tenants. It's not desirable because we never receive payment on the penalties, and a lot of these complaints are based on, either retaliation or whatever. But our inspectors are trained to educate tenants about their responsibilities out there. When we took over rental housing, health and safety, one of my objectives was, can we enhance the relationship between landlords and tenants? And we strive to do that. Have we done a great job with it? Because we've been, the volume of complaints that continuously come in, that's where our focus is. But we spend a fair amount of time dealing with tenants, educating tenants, telling tenants you have to let contractors in when they're here to make the repairs, and that kind of stuff. So
So it sounds like there is a action for it.
there is an action for it.
We-
Tenants are responsible for things, especially the biggest deal is tampering with smoke alarms. So we can find tenants, we do find tenants for tampering with smoke alarms or CO alarms and that kind of stuff. Most tenants refuse to pay it. They get evicted, they move on somewhere else, and there's no tracking mechanism to follow them. But
Yeah.
we do have mechanisms in place.
Okay, that seems to be, and I think
Yeah.
one of the problems is also that. And you end up in the same boat as the landlord is in, where you can do what you want, but they ain't paying. So what are you gonna do?
Mindful of time, everyone. Mary?
This is unrelated to inspections. It's more of a curiosity question. Does the state of Vermont have a program for firefighters to use abandoned buildings for training? And the reason I ask is because next to a high school near me is an abandoned, burned out, horrible mess of a house. And for 10 years, we've been trying to get that house taken down. And I was told by the previous mayor that the firefighters don't do that.
I can't
We have-
answer that.
They totally, the town bought up or had donated a couple of properties that they used for firefighter training.
Sorry, I don't think.
I don't think they burn them to the ground anymore to get rid of
Right.
it. I think they
But
were trained.
I would gently suggest that
Yeah.
we should move on to the next witness.
But they don't literally take the house
Just.
down.
Thank you, Mike.
Right.
This was really helpful.
This has been very helpful and very informative, and I really appreciate your time.
It was nice meeting everybody here and seeing some of you again.
That's true.
Anything the Division of Fire Safety can do, just please reach out to me. More than happy to speak with you.
Right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I take it you have something to tell us?
A couple things.
Good.
We've asked her to tell us a few.
I know, well, but I mean, there's always the possibility she told us that Mike covered it all.
I mean, to be honest, I'm really happy with her.
They sold it, and it's now occupied by.
We're on the building energy code committee as well.
I know.
Oh, you're on that committee? How many people are on that committee? Sorry,
A lot.
let me,
It's a big committee.
A lot. Am I in and waiting? See? Oh, wait, I'm using yesterday's link. Shoot. Says. First of all, Miriam and I work on this. For the record, my name is Samantha Sheehan. I'm the municipal policy and advocacy specialist for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And have prepared to talk to you today about municipal authorities related to how local regulatory processes related to housing and development. Did you send it? Okay, no problem. So we're gonna talk about universal municipal authorities. I'll explain that some unique municipal authorities exist. We'll talk about local planning, regulatory and enforcement processes. I might skip over fee setting, but the information's there. I want to introduce or discuss a concept called form-based code. And then, I don't know, time permitting, or if maybe it's even more interesting to you, I did update this slide deck after I sent it to Miriam yesterday and added in a preview of the Act 250 exemption process, which we discussed yesterday with Senate Ag.
You know what I think? We really do need, we have a 10:30 hearing with 4 witnesses. And I think, need to start it pretty much at 10:30, which is only 23 minutes from now. And we have I think, need a 5-minute or 10-minute break. So what I think you should do is assume that we'll have you back
Great.
to complete this testimony. It's more than I think can be done in 12 minutes. So I think you don't have to, I think you shouldn't just think, oh, I'm just going to skip over and only touch the most important. I think you should just start and then we'll have you back. We'll
Okay.
arrange to have you back, if not later this week, next week.
Cool. Okay, so all towns have broad regulatory authority for land use under state law. That does not mean they all use it. So every municipality may have a municipal plan. If you have a municipal plan adopted, which there are 200, then you may adopt permanent bylaw and zoning in order to enforce and realize your municipal plan. If you have permanent bylaw and zoning, then you may adopt or use other enforcement tools that are universal authorities of the municipality. And those enforcement tools, such as an inspection requirement, would be created through the adoption of a municipal ordinance, which is like our town law. And that is also where fee authority rests, is by ordinance. So there are 247 municipalities, that doesn't include villages. 200 have a municipal plan. 142 are what we call 10-acre towns that have adopted zoning and bylaw. 89 cities, towns, and villages have charters. Actually, about a quarter of those are villages for reasons I'm curious to learn why. that's important because charter is a way a municipality can acquire a non-universal authority. So for example, Burlington has the authority to regulate thermal heating in buildings. So gas, propane, oil, as opposed to electric,
A charter.
and that's a charter authority. And then 43 municipalities operate water and sewer. Some operate just water.
Is the 10 acre just called 10 acre, but it
It's
just means
called-
any town that has zoning and planning,
it's
has
the-
zoning.
Yeah, it's called 10 acre because of the jurisdictional 10 acre trigger if you don't have zoning under Act 250.
Okay,
That's where like the nickname comes from. So I already explained this. So the systems and tools that municipalities have to express their authority and utilize it are zoning, as we discussed, where they may regulate land development in conformance with the municipal plan. There are many enumerated preemptions, what we call preemption in Vermont state law, that says the municipal zoning does not apply in this situation, or the municipality may only regulate up to X for this type of land use. So the current total preemptions are cannabis and renewable energy, so solar. I'm gonna put farming on the side because that's an open question for
Right,
a recent court decision. There are other preemptions that say a municipality may regulate this type of building, but not to the extent that it prevents the intended use. And things like that are hospitals, places of worship, homeless shelters, state buildings. I think that's pretty much it.
shelters, hospitals, halfway houses, no.
Just emergency shelter, so short term. Not transitional housing, so emergency shelters, hospitals, and places of worship. And I think there's one more. Is it like banks? It's something, there's like another random one.
There's a lot around that. sort of
Yeah.
Emergency housing space that conversion of a different use to that use.
Oh,
can't
yeah.
be,
There's that one.
you know,
Right.
so
Yeah, conversion of hotels and motels to short-term rental is one of those. And then, of course, we have a new preemption that says if your zoning allows a single-family home, it also has to allow a duplex. And that all municipal zoning must allow an ADU that is up to 900 square feet or 30% of the primary structure, residence.
Whichever is
Residential
larger,
Sorry?
whichever is larger.
Yes. In addition to these tools we've discussed, there's also policy. So policy generally applies to employees. Where this comes into play is like Mike was describing, do you inspect always? Do you inspect when there's a complaint? Do you inspect when there's capacity to inspect? That would be like a policy, right, of the town. This matters because various components of local regulation may exist in bylaw, ordinance, charter, or policy. And then to change those for the good of the people is a different process for each. And while municipalities, so the municipality corporate, the town of Hancock has broad regulatory authority. State law absolutely requires a robust citizen-led, democratic, and transparent public process to create, adopt, amend, and enforce local regulation.
So the
So-
state defines the process.
The state defines
Minimum process.
Yes, so zoning is not from the mind of a select person, right? Zoning is created through a process that begins at the So state law requires 12 elements of every municipal plan. And there is a statutory process defined to create and adopt a municipal plan, including statutory, what we call statutory notice requirement. So you have to share it with a prescribed list of likely interested stakeholders. And then it has to go through approval at the regional planning commission level and at the Department of Housing and Community Development. And municipal plans are updated every 10 years, although lots of municipal plans are out of date. And oftentimes a reason is because of a lack of ability to receive planning, professional planning support from the RPC in a timely enough manner to do that. Same thing, state law prescribes a process for the adoption of zoning and bylaw. And in most cases, this process begins at the citizen level, citizen commission level, most often a planning commission, but sometimes a different one. And then at minimum to adopt a bylaw or bylaw amendment, you have to publish a report that explains how it is consistent with the municipal plan. You have to hold at least one public hearing. Many charters require two. And then there has to be by state law a minimum 15-day notice period where public comment may be received. And many municipal policies or charter require more than 15 days. And every time there's an amendment, that has to start over. So if you say we're gonna have setbacks of 15 feet, and then at the public hearing, fire safety comes in and says that's an unsafe setback, we actually recommend twice that, and you amend the number in the code, you have to start the whole public process over. When we're talking about the enforcement of code, and I think a really easy way to think about this is actually parking. Like if you've gone somewhere in Vermont that has public parking and you may have gotten a parking ticket, it's the same authority in state law, basically. So the municipality adopted a parking ordinance that says when you park on State Street, it's 2 hours and it costs this much per hour to park. And then if you violate it, you can get a ticket that's this amount for the first offense. That's all prescribed in ordinance. And then the municipal employee who works in parking enforcement walks by, sees your meter expired, and it's basically the same system, although much more complicated. The ordinance and codes are much more technical in the regulation of land use and building development, but it's the same kind of idea. So when a municipality is considering, well, we have zoning and bylaw, what are we going to do for enforcement? There's some really important considerations. Maybe most importantly is just like, what does the future look like for your community? Are you building a building inspection or a rental inspection or a weatherization inspection enforcement team to fulfill a state obligation? Or is it according to the plan of the community that's been developed through this public process? Does the standard of the code support the need for enforcement? And does the town have the administrative or financial capacity to execute enforcement? So do you have enough people to issue permits in an effective timeline? Do you have enough people to issue inspections if those are required prior to construction or renovation? What is a reasonable penalty that's not so punitive that it would prevent the development you wish to see happen in your community? And are you providing the right to appeal, etc.? Fee setting happens by ordinance. It cannot be used as purely income, and fees can be punitive. So you can have punitive fees for the violation of a code. And generally, when we're talking about fees for building permits, those are put into what's called a fee schedule so that the ordinance doesn't have to be updated every year or every 2 years. So the ordinance has a schedule attached, and the construction community and homeowners know over time how the fees will go up or not go up. And it's usually done like on a cost per square footage or a cost, there's also filing fees, which are like a cost per page.
Samantha, I think we should go
Cool.
maybe one more slide and then we'll have you back to really to complete.
I actually think let's stop here, because then I was gonna do form-based code and Act 250, and
Alright.
those are like big ideas, so,
Okay,
yeah.
May I ask one?
sure.
Sorry, just so I'm trying to understand the order of today's testimony and whether you have a response to
Sure.
give us regarding what we just heard before about code compliance and fire safety.
Sure, well, VLCT advocates for municipal authority. We would strongly advocate to protect the authorities that municipalities have now to realize the type of development that they want, need, and make legal, as well as to regulate against non-conforming or non-compliant building. Period. When we're talking about state building code and state energy code specifically, I want to maybe underscore something that Mike said, but maybe he used more words, I'll use less. So the state building code and the state energy code apply. A municipality does not need zoning or bylaw or inspection or enforcement in order for those codes to apply. The municipality may also adopt an enhanced code above and beyond that, or one that's particular to them. So for building energy code to apply to construction in Vermont, the municipality does not need to adopt the code, but it can, and it can adopt what is commonly referred to as stretch code above and beyond the state code. I will not comment on where building code should live in state government. That's for you and your colleagues and agencies, I think, to discuss. I will say, at the municipal level, where we are the practitioners of these things and sharing the goal of safe buildings, smart growth, and new housing. It would never happen that we would have energy code before building code. And it would also never happen that a municipality would adopt these laws, these requirements, without the commensurate enforcement systems as well. That's very unusual. I mean, I think when you look at, I think it's instructive to look at some of these codes that, or building permit requirements at the local level, because some of them are pretty thin and may focus just on, for example, fire safety. And some of them are quite robust and specific and prescriptive in our denser areas and our bigger communities. And then they have the permitting and inspection department to match, to assist with the outreach, the education. They work directly with builders and homeowners. They have folks who just work on sort of permit mapping, telling you what permits you need to get in what order and how to find the resources to build to comply prior to having your inspection, right? This is, I think you said permit management, not permit enforcement. I think municipal permit professionals would say they're like permit educators, like they're educating on the code. They work towards compliance through education.
And then specifically to the comment that, or sort of the next steps of like, if we're doing any kind of complaint response with short-term rentals, blah, blah, blah. So what's your comment about that, about like, can we aim it towards education? I mean, this seems to align with what you're saying, but I just want to hear it clearly. What does VCLT have a position on, like, have you heard from your towns? Yes, that's what we would like. We would like to have education from the fire safety folks so that we can.
I want to say first, I should have said it already. Our municipal officials report really great, excellent working relationships with the State Department of Fire Safety. When it comes to short-term rentals, we advocate again for the local authority to regulate and the local resources to enforce, especially for fire safety for short-term rentals. A lot of these units are not single standalone residential homes, they're in condos and really large multifamily developments where there may be dozens of short-term rentals.
Okay.
And in those communities, fire safety is a big concern. Wastewater is a big concern. The number of sleeping units these are all public safety and life safety issues. And there are other things that other towns want to regulate for in the scope of short-term rental ordinance. So where was I going with that? You said do a position on education and outreach. I would say it's a both and. Yes, the ongoing work with the Department of Fire Safety in that area is really important, and we totally support that continuing and improving. And we want that local authority to set the local reg and to make sure that it's enforced and that folks are safe and that there's not too many people sleeping in a place that's too small to safely house them or without having a disproportionate negative impact on neighbors in the community. With parking, traffic, egress, ingress, wastewater, etc. Housing availability.
Thank you, Samantha.
Yep.
We will have you back.
Cool.
And for the committee, what I'd like to do is take a break until 25 minutes of 12. Our hearing was scheduled for 10:30, 11. The hearing was scheduled for 10:30. We will postpone it until 10:30.